Podcasting since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts radio network, kingofpodcasts.com.
What do OnlyFans, AI girlfriends, and stepdads all have in common? A new age of...
We're all a little depraved and debaucherous. Here is the king of podcasts.
This is one of those stories I just caught on to only the other day because it finally came to fruition. And it's because, it's not often I go to the Guardian magazine or newspaper to go ahead and hear and read a lot of stories that are out there that might be interesting for this depraved and debaucherous audience. Thank you for listening to the program. Kingofpodcasts.com is the website. So last month of September was the Xbiz conference, adult conference in Amsterdam. Over 1,000 content creators at this event. The Xbiz Adult Industry Conference has been going on for decades. I didn't get to go to any of them myself, but it still happens over here in South Florida, down in Miami. Actually goes on here. It's an industry magazine, and they've been connected to all the major brands that are out there in porn, from Vivid to Playboy and so on and so forth. But a lot of things came out of this conference because people were starting to feel like the porn industry is back, because the full technological evolution has brought more things for porn creators and porn distributors to go ahead and do something with, to make money off of. More common than ever. So a story coming from The Guardian back in September, and then the story came to me once again because the reporter that was on site investigating this actually did a podcast on it, and we're going to hear from her and her whole experience on it. So the annual Xbiz conference lasts 3 days, this one in particular in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, bringing creators primarily but not exclusively women, together with executives primarily but not exclusively men, as well as model management agencies, online payment, traffic optimization companies, content sharing platforms, the same kind of companies that are out there. But they've all been hampered by several U.S. codes, 2257 and 4472. So it was the documentation, the checking of age verification of the talent that was there, and the amount of paperwork that had to go along with it, and the cost of having staff on deck to handle all this. So U.S. codes 2257 to 4472 caused what ultimately brought a lot of things to the video industry. And listen, just like the music industry, just like television and radio and all, the digital disruption changed everything. Now, physical copies of whatever kind of content that's out there, now that you have it digitally for 25 years, plus, and then one thing that was happening when I got to go and hear about the space, and I was involved in a short time doing podcasting in that space, they were in the transition going to HD, higher def. Of course, we were just going into the DSL internet hookups. And at that point, we haven't gotten completely to the point where streaming anything higher than 56 kilobytes per second was the norm out there. So for people to go ahead and download or stream content wasn't that easy yet. It had gotten out to that point yet. We did not get to the high speed that we have today. And that was the next point that was coming up. But the porn creators were going ahead of the game and making sure they had higher pixelated content, more high def content, because the high def equipment was already out there. So everybody caught onto it early. And that's how it always kind of works. Before something mainstream happens, it starts in porn. That's what usually the internet starts off with. But there's a number of things that are going on that people have started learning about what has changed over here. Obviously, several creators that we've talked about extensively on the program since the start of this year. Lily Phillips, Bonnie Blue, both at this event. And they spoke with The Guardian. First of all, Lily Phillips was in the lobby when this young lady, Amelia Gentleman, caught up with her in the lobby, becoming famous after filming herself having sex with 100 men in a day. She said, quote, "I'm just here for a good time." And she was dressed down in a cream tracksuit. And since her viral stunt, another British creator, Bonnie Blue, has claimed to have slept with more than 1,000 men in a day, 12 hours to be exact, 1,057. Phillips had to come up with a new way to grab people's attention. The answer, widowers. She revealed plans to film herself sleeping with large numbers of them. And the extreme attempts to recruit paying subscribers can be risky. There was an OnlyFans creator, an Australian creator that was hospitalized earlier, filming a challenge where she had sex with 583 men in one day. I believe that was Lindsay Knight. And Lily Phillips says she's contemplating creating an AI bot of herself to sell photos to fans to reduce her workload. And some adult film producers are relaxed about the risk of AI making their work obsolete. That was the part they were all afraid of, was that they were going to be able to still do things in the age of porn. And if you were looking for it out there, AI content is now there for you. Remember, before you see the AI content is being developed and built now in mainstream for memes or for, funny videos or whatever there is, it started in porn. Remember, it always starts there. So there were two British entrepreneurs, Felix Henderson and Nick Young, talking about their new digital twins company, saying, quote, "We were all freaking the F out about this 2 years ago. And that we were to the point now that we're no longer worried that AI will replace real humans on screen. Quote, we sell serotonin, cortisol, dopamine. We're all about emotions. I think there's no threat to creators." So now, what their digital twins company is, they license celebrity voices in a portfolio of old photographs in their career heydays, programming the resulting avatars to undress. The site will enable women to prolong their careers, mitigating the alarming threat of aging. Quote, alarming, and a lot of the fans are relatively fickle. Some creators like the idea of having their image frozen in time, and they want to continue to earn money in this, so they like the idea they can effectively earn off how they appear today and give themselves the career longevity they don't necessarily have. So yeah. Unlike Hollywood, that does not want to go and have the AI types like Tilly Norwood. If you didn't hear my Broadcasters podcast last week, take a listen. There's the whole storm brewing about Tilly Norwood, this AI actress that is possibly looking to find an agent in Hollywood to become an actress for movies and television. They all go on to say now that the AI business they have around has the happy side effect of liberating women from the still stigmatized business of taking their clothes off for money. Quote, I would say it's the most positive, ethical step forward that you could possibly make. Now, I want to play a little bit of Amelia speaking about this on a recent podcast called the Guardian Audio Long Reads podcast. First of all, in this story, she starts talking about being at the conference, and previously, over a decade ago, when she went to this particular conference, everybody was completely doom and gloom. And then things changed. So let me go ahead and play back what she was saying about that and what has changed so much in the last decade.
So, Amelia, you decided to go to Amsterdam to what sounds like quite an extraordinary conference. But it wasn't actually the first time that you've been to this gathering, was it?
So I went to an Xbiz conference just over a decade ago in London in a really depressing hotel in a windowless basement. And then there was an atmosphere of total gloom within the industry because all of the owners of adult companies were very concerned that the arrival of streaming of pornography online, the arrival of sites like Pornhub had totally destroyed the business model, and that there wasn't very much money to be made in the industry.
And this time round, I mean, in just 11 years since you attended that first conference, the industry's changed almost beyond recognition. Yeah,
there's been a hugely radical shift in that decade. We've seen a completely new way for the pornography industry to monetize itself.
Yeah, and there is so much money to be made because more and more people are watching porn. There was a YouGov survey 2 years ago which found that half of all British men watch porn, 15% of women, including, no doubt, many listeners of this podcast. And many of them are watching via a relatively new player in the industry, OnlyFans.
And we'll talk more about that in a moment because the OnlyFans aspect is still fascinating overall. And we're talking about in 9 years, okay? The Stokely family put this together, this social media site, to upload videos of their hobbies. And again, when there's a spot to go and put porn, here we go. And really what created the buzz of all this, unfortunately, was COVID. Hey, listen, when you have people at home and they can't go out, and for some women, they can't go and make the business of having to sell their bodies or to do some, depraved and debaucherous things to go ahead and make a living. Well, when they were able to find out they can do the kind of content they could want to do inside their home, in the privacy of your own home, with nobody finding out about them, and keep it as simple as possible, there was an audience for it, for amateur content especially. And this is also after the fact that we had things going on where the likes of Pornhub and Backpage and Craigslist, all these sites, they got rid of all the adult content. So coincides with all this. President Trump comes in and he makes changes to adult content. So Craigslist, no more dating sites, no more dating sections in there, nothing for, massage parlors or for people to, make a hookup, things like that. Because they said there was things of sex trafficking that was going on all these sites. Backpage, obviously that was a site for escorts, for different content creation, for different models or whatever you wanted, and different services that are all adult services out there locally in your area. That got thrown away. And then towards the end of the term for President Trump, Pornhub would get caught up in the credit card issues, and the likes of American Express and I think Visa, MasterCard, it all took away the ability to go ahead and swipe credit cards on that site. And that was a crackdown on Pornhub. We talked about on this program where it happened and never recovered from that. But now there's a point where there are still various sites out there that have content that you can buy, a la carte, whatever you want. Interact with those fans out there. There's a number of sites that can do that kind of thing in the same vein that OnlyFans does. Except there are some professional types that are out there doing their content that, they put a lot of work into it and stage it and frame it and all that kind of stuff. And then there are girls on OnlyFans that, they don't really have to go and do much of anything. It just depends on how much work they want to put into it. And are they really working with anybody else to do the content? No, but people are willing to go ahead and pay a subscription price to have content they can find on there. What's the interesting part too is that you never see what there is. Like there's no preview section for anything on OnlyFans. I'm still surprised how some people do it, because if you know who the model is, then you're willing to go ahead and subscribe and hope for whatever that person's doing. You blind faith think, well, you're going to get something you're going to like from that. And that's what happens. But it doesn't matter what it is, because it's a guy gooning or simping over a model that they like. And when she goes in and they learn about her, well, she's a content creator from some other rain, whether it's Sophie Rain, whether it's Little Tay, or, whether it's Bad Baby, whatever. They all find themselves on those sites. And if she's going to be seen possibly naked, they're going to be on there for it. And that's what happens. And here's the part, as everything all changed back in 2020, when these two women on this podcast talked about the change of going into the idea of doing OnlyFans content.
Back in January 2020, I started my OnlyFans account. I soon began to make about $15K monthly on the platform, with a grand total of over $200,000 made within the last 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, I guess OnlyFans admirers would say that it's democratized porn, it empowers women because it gives them much more control over their content, and it allows them to keep a much larger percentage of the money that they charge for making. I think don't they get 80%, I think?
That's right. A lot of the women involved in creating the content now will say that the whole industry has shifted in their favour, so that previously, a decade ago, 20 years ago, most of the power lay in the hands of the mostly men who owned the studios, who recruited the women to come and work, who auditioned and cast women. But now there's been a dramatic shift towards women, because they are getting 80% of the revenues for whatever they produce for OnlyFans. And
80%. If you want the industry to go, this is the thing that happened too in the porn industry that made the change, because there was a set scale, because there was a set price, and you had all these people managing the content that was being made and produced. I mean, no matter how much the professional environment was and how they were treated, but doing it from your own home and the amount of money that you can make, and you can keep 80% of it. I mean, that's what is the draw for women of all ages and all different areas to go on to OnlyFans. The thing is, you've created an open platform for anybody to become a porn star. because that's what every woman can go and become and can a prize to be. She wants to be able to go and get the potential of a lot of money because women will come in with a delusion to think that they're worth a lot. When they see that 80% return on what they make, they think, oh, I can make all this money and 80% of it's going to be mine. But then someone would get on the grind and they find out if it's true or like that or not. They go on to talk about the fact that, for OnlyFans, it's like being an Uber driver. And I can attest to this because I do it part-time. You clock in when you want to, you clock off when you want to. And the argument goes that it's more empowering for women. And Amelia went to the conference here to try to understand where the power really lies. Now, they also go on to talk about the areas of why women are doing this now and what is really the advantage of doing this at all, because of the fact that the young women want to be able to go and still get by and the easiest way possible. So they look at this here and they say, okay, this is the means to an end. They want to go into this part. And this is where the influencer aspect of all this, not just for a girl that's doing dance challenges or as a model and she wants to show off whatever her job is and this and that, the whole looking out there and seeing what she's doing. The same thing goes here. So in this Guardian podcast, they go on to go and talk about the lack of dignity, they say, of working a normal job.
But if you go to a normal workplace, there is not much dignity for the younger generations because you're earning very little money and you pay your rent and you pay your food and you run out of money. And that is not dignity because you cannot choose to have a bigger house to have a family. Like if you want to have 1, 2, 3 kids, you can't.
Now, that's somebody from the Xbiz conference, one of the content creators there that does adult content. This is nothing different, not too far-fetched from what regular women think right now and how they feel about it, because that's the mindset they got right now. And for women that believe they have that beauty, they have the body, they have an appeal to an audience out there, if they're able to put their stuff out there, and they hopefully will, then they think there's a chance to get something more out of it. And this same model they kept talking to about here on this podcast, and they talk about, coming to the idea of, not being so prude about it and feeling like, well, it's okay if I do this. I mean, finding an acceptance to doing this.
She also talked about the real sense of pressure she felt under to produce a lot of content all the time. She says it's not easy. She says that there's an idea that making money on OnlyFans is just a question of taking your clothes off, of having no inhibitions and being happy about being nude on camera. But actually it isn't. It's a lot more difficult and it requires long hours and a lot of actually quite exhausting work. She was quite ill when I met her and said she was suffering from burnout.
Well, but that's the part that nobody gets to hear about how some of these content creators putting out a massive amount of content to try to satisfy and keep up an income stream that they want to have is very different. Now, they go on to talk about Lily Phillips and Bonnie Blue and the setup there and what the impact of what those two young women have done right now in the industry so far.
And it was such a big deal just last year when Lily Phillips did that stunt, but she's been thoroughly eclipsed, really, hasn't she, by other content creators, notably Bonnie Blue. Many listeners might have watched the Channel 4 documentary about her when she's trying to have sex with 1,000 men in a day, and even that isn't enough. Then she has to say, I'm going to try and have sex with X number of virgins. So it does seem that people are being pushed towards ever more extreme material.
Yeah, that's right. And there's obviously an inherent risk in some of these stunts, which are portrayed as empowering for the women who are performing them. But an Australian OnlyFans creator was hospitalised earlier this year after she filmed a challenge where she had sex with 583 men in one day and was taken to hospital with exhaustion. She said, I think my body just finally had enough.
Now, this is the part where the escalation, and listen, the porn industry doesn't care. They'll take as many models as they can. The thing is, it's the platform owners. I don't know if the industry is really making so much in the content creation. What they're really making the money off of is having the platforms to go and do it, having, the credit card processing services, the technology platforms, because there's other sites besides OnlyFans out there providing the same kind of content. So if they're out there to do that, and you leave these women to their demise to go on and do what they want to do with this content and try to figure things out, they're going to figure it out themselves and see what they can do. Is it worth it? That's where women want to go and find out about that. Do they feel like this is going to be something that at the end of the day, they can really make something of a lucrative living? And that's the dream of, not needing a man, not needing anyone else in their life. They can be independent, modern women, and live as they want and just use their body as they do without anybody having to be involved in it. Because that's the perfect world for a woman in the modern day today. So can it be done? Well, these two are talking about the fact that the dream is alive and well for those that put their mind to it. And why should they? Well, they talk about it.
I mean, why can't you just believe what they're saying? Why can't you believe that maybe it is, much better than doing a dead-end minimum wage job, that they choose their hours, they only put out content that they have approved, and they're taking a big cut of all of the money that they make?
So I think absolutely for a percentage of women who do OnlyFans work, it is lucrative. People have described making millions in a relatively short period of time. But I think you have to scratch away at how common those experiences are. And I think the thing that I found really disconcerting, I suppose, about the conference is the real mismatch between the very benign sort of content that most of the women were talking about, and then the content that you see on sites like Pornhub that don't have a paywall, so you can see them once you've gone through age verification very, very swiftly. And they portray a kind of pornography that's completely different, often very violent, very misogynistic, showing a lot of disturbing content around fantasy, incest, and borderline illegal, kind of hinting at child sex abuse material. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is that there was a very sanitized picture of the industry being promoted, but I think you have to kind of keep an eye on the wider nature of their business.
Okay, so there's a point to be made there, is that the old way of porn is not there anymore. As she's saying here, more sanitized. By the way, the podcast, I need to go and give courtesy to this. It's the Guardian's audio long reads program. It aired on September 30th. And again, reporter Amelia Gentleman offering a first-hand account of the porn industry's dynamic transformation after being at several conferences, notably the one that we're talking about here is the Xbiz Adult Industry Conference in Amsterdam. So now, going back to that, the change of porn today, where it's not a lot of men in around the setting this up. The ideas might be male created and thought out, where the women are able to go and do something else, where it's their own empowerment, their own content. They might obviously take feedback from their viewers, their subscribers, but for the most part, it's like, well, they're only going to do what they're going to do. So it's a different style of porn. And if that's your bag, that's fine. But, women are not going to go back to how it was. There's still that kind of content out there. Some people are still doing it, but you're not getting any big studios that are doing that kind of thing anymore. Like, those days are gone. And that's the part that I think makes the industry more welcoming than ever before. And that's why there's now a boom once again in this industry once again. And that's where I think it's all coming from. But where you got to be in it is in the AI realm, creating that content, because that's where the content creation can be done for newer creators, for big professional creators. They're going to create AI systems, models, and technology to be able to go to that. Meanwhile, in real life, real persona driven will be the OnlyFans generation that's going to be causing that. So if you're going to have that other group of people, mostly men, that are going to want to have something that's much more stimulating and not amateur, but much more professional, and take away the whole idea of, well, if I'm not going to go look for some random woman that everybody else is looking at. I want to have my own, because now there's a personalization of AI girlfriends. That's the next part in this whole system that's in play as well. Now, Amelia would also go to the TESS conference in Prague. And I want to go ahead and let Amelia go ahead and explain what was going on at this conference, because this is the part where AI comes in. This is the extra level of what changes now in the industry, AI, and what it's doing right now in the porn industry. Let's go ahead and bring that up real quick.
It was a very, very different vibe, very tech bro in atmosphere, and a lot of emerging AI adult industry content producers. So companies that are making completely new form of pornography. I saw a lot of organizations that are trying to make money out of creating AI girlfriends, which is kind of a euphemism for AI bots who will take their clothes off and perform explicit acts, but completely without the involvement of any human. It's a bit like a kind of evolution of playing video games for teenagers. And the technology is good enough so far that you can get up to about 6 seconds, but not beyond. But it's getting faster very quickly. And they think it will be just a matter of months before you can have hour-long capacity for AI content.
Which is good.
Now, this is already getting brought up because of the fact that there is a sexualization in video games and anime. Look, I mean, in any anime I've watched out there, okay, it's incredible what we're seeing now. What's popular anime, okay? Whether it's Demon Slayer right now that's out with this movie, which I did go see in the theater, whether it's One Piece, whether it's Dragon Ball Z, you have some sexualized characters embedded throughout all these different series. In the mangas themselves, you have the content. You actually have the written, watch, read. And then you go to the anime and you see it animated for you. And there are people that are getting off on it. Then you can tell that the Japanese animators, they're, of course, playing into the sensibilities of these younger men, teenagers, 20s, 30s, that are all into it. And they have this storyline where there's some empowering guys, oh, look, they get to the girl, this and that. The girls are very submissive, very, very feminine. All that going on makes a big difference here. Now, I want to go back to 2023 when I did an episode of The Print and Debaucherous for the folks at Dream GF. And we were talking about this technology being brought to life. So let's go ahead and bring that back and play that clip. Someone that they've already wanted to always be with, some crush of theirs, somebody they might have been stuck in the friend zone with, or they might have, hopefully had a chance to be with before. That it's a chance to, get back together with again in some way, shape, or form. Almost like, it's somebody they already met before, but it's like they're meeting with amnesia this time, and it's like a reset, a whole mental reset of starting back over again. There's no screwing up with AI girlfriends. That's the part that's also a part. And then when that AI girlfriend has the language learning to go ahead and get to know the person talking to them, that human person, that guy. This is George Mark and Jeff Dillon. I talked with DreamGF.ai, and they spoke more about this and where the dating idea comes from, where a guy that's down on his luck would be really interested in an AI girlfriend.
Yeah, and you could take the similar features that you have with these people, then you can kind of create your character based on those features. And then you can say, hey, she has this kind of personality, right? And then you're like, all right, let me set her personality like this. And you can kind of configure that to that person that you have in mind. One issue is you kind of want to avoid the uploading pictures because it maybe figures out that you someone that they.
So now the idea is that when you can have an AI girlfriend like this, and the plan is then you can go ahead and make her into the right personality, look like somebody that you see that resembles somebody on either as a celebrity or an OnlyFans model or whatever there is. You can then create the perfect one for you. The fact we're going to get to that point, and the fact that it's going to be just a matter of time before guys could opt. And here's the part that's going to be a problem. What are they going to do to have sex? They're going to just, diddle themselves to these AI girlfriends. The human interaction's gone. I mean, is that where we want to go with this? Because part of it is too, is that, okay, porn's come back, but is it for the best thing? I mean, there's a thing where, it was a rite of passage if you did watch porn. because then you would kind of get an idea, okay, this is what it is, what sex is like, and this is what, getting turned on to, but you don't stay on it because you'd hope that you get the real thing. That's the part. But now this continues to go along, this technology, the porn industry now is going to still play and prey on people that are going to want to get their rocks off, and to the content creators that are willing to go and do the content that's going to draw the masses. They're not going to worry about that part. And that's what is concerning about all this. I want to take one last clip from Amelia from this audio long reads podcast from The Guardian. And she just gives a final take on all this real quick here. I thought we'd go and listen to this real quick, because she explains where AI is going to change the industry. It's remarkable, and where porn will be seen in the future now in the coming years and decades, as a matter of fact.
I think that the speed with which AI is changing the industry is remarkable. Pornography is hugely under scrutinized. It's a growing business globally. We've seen huge changes in how the business model is working. We know that the adult industry often pushes forward technological advances that follow in other industries afterwards. And I think the fact is that there's a kind of real reluctance from the media and often from politicians as well to scrutinise this industry, because there's a kind of double taboo. People feel understandably very embarrassed talking about it. And they're also quite worried about being accused of being prudish if they find anything to disapprove of. And yet, there are things there that are genuinely in need of scrutiny. In Britain, we're seeing huge regulatory changes going on about how we manage this enormous amount of online content that hasn't been properly regulated for decades.
Right. So the thing is, scrutinizing people that want to go ahead and be interested in porn, well, I guess I don't have that problem, because I've been talking about this as a regular, ongoing, rotating subject that's the praise of debauchers for a while. And you know what? That's the reason I do the program in the first place, because this is something that doesn't get talked about. Like, the adult side never gets talked about at all. I never called it porn. It was always adult. And it was always fascinating about the people that were in that industry. By the way, my experience in all those conferences that Amelia's talking about, the people are so nice. I had some of the best times possible. There's nothing sex related over there, really. There's sex, involved in terms of what their content is. But at the end of the day, you get really nice people that are out there, which was the best part. I met couples. I met, people young and old that are into the space, just laid back and just having a good old time with it. And pretty cool about it. But that was the real thing I really enjoyed. There was a lot of cool, amazing people in the industry. And now you get a lot of tech bros that are in there that are looking to find their way to enter the race of AI, so that when they're trying to do porn, the George Marks and the Jeff Dillons of the world are working hard to get themselves where they are. And remember, I talked to them 2 years ago on this program, and I see their stuff right now. They are moving along quickly. And remember, at that time when I did that interview, I still don't forget, of course, they had the dream girlfriends, but at the same time, they had a substitute site that was also being built that was going to be a porn component, because it was not going to be you were looking for an AI girlfriend just to go and have a relationship with. No, you're going to find a girl that you can do whatever things you want to have with. And it's not like you're cheating on anybody. It's like, come on. But this is all that was happening. I was fascinated by it. And now, 2 years later, I'm not surprised by it. It's going to happen. My problem is going to be, is this going to replace sex overall for men? And that's the thing I'm really worried about. And I want guys out there to not feel like this is what is going to be in their point. And so the other part that we're talking about was the other kind of content that's out there that's still being done, because the original porn industry is just going farther and farther into depravity and debauchery, trying to find things that will, basically you're being continuously desensitized. What more can we do out there to really keep people to engage in our content? Like, how much farther can we go past bukkake or cuckolding or all these other things that are going on? So they bring up in the story from The Guardian about that the Pornhub homepage. You could come away from most of the Xbiz panels thinking of the material under discussion is mostly naked cuddles mixed up with some curious erotic cosplay. But some of the homepage of Pornhub has a different picture. It's extreme throat F, no mercy for her throat, huge bulge, incest fantasies are rife, stepdaddy F my virgin a-hole on my boyfriend's birthday, petite 18-year-old Asian bondage, I teach my little stepsister how to play on the cell phone and end up effing her hard, video teaser clips showing women with skin that seems painfully reddened by slapping, and it's misogynistic content, they say. She loves being used like meat and looks violent and painful, but delegates seem curiously disinclined to discuss this. So they were talking about the part about stepdads. And that's where there's a lot of the younger, barely legal content that's out there, which are barely legal content creators that are still coming to the space, finding their way in. And it's the, daddy to the daughter dynamic kind of stuff that's going on. That's still going on here. I don't think that's something I want to go ahead and deal with either. But again, that's the hardcore stuff that's out here. What we're actually getting in a lot of ways is the next generation is going to be subject to more softcore kind of content. I mean, unless they get these AI models to go and do something that's really hardcore, that's going to satisfy the users. But the part is that now behind the paywall, you still have the stepdaddy content. And that's what we're talking about here is that. And, there's still a market for it. So the traditional market of the porn industry is still being managed while the new generation of AI content and OnlyFans models is coming into play. So the digital disruption, just like everything else, there's the traditional model that's still going on towards its end. And then the new generation, the digital age, is already well in play and continues to move along until it basically pushes the traditional model away and all that kind of content goes by the wayside because there won't be anybody else that's going to do it because all the money will be on the digital side. And that's what's happening now. But yes, that kind of content we're talking about right there, the stepdaddy kind of content. Yeah, there are sites just like Pornhub that are out there doing the same kind of content. And it's all out there. There's fetish content. There's so much more that still goes on. But yes, the stepdaddy content, that's the real hardcore stuff. That's what we're talking about now. It's still in play. And it has to be noticed. So for them, for this reporter, she wanted to point it out to the Xbiz crowd, and they weren't paying much with it. They weren't paying much attention to it. They just kind of let it go. So at the end of the day, there are so many different ways that porn is still now very much alive and well in the world, especially online. It's always been around more than ever. And these days, what are you going to do? I mean, I'm curious to the fan base out here, the listeners, what are you watching now these days that is interesting to you of the new digital content? Like, I mean, is there an interest in OnlyFans models? Has there been anybody been out there yet that has started to tinker with AI girlfriends? I want to know about that. I'd love to go ahead and find out if you got yourself into that. And more importantly, share with me and let me know if you really are depraved and debaucherous.